think I got into playing cards when I saw one of those early David Blaine specials on TV. I was probably about 15, maybe younger when I first saw it.
I remember my granddad. He had this deck of cards. It was a Sicilian regional deck, and he was carrying it everywhere. And he was going to, I don't know how to say in English, circolo. It's like a social club where you can play some games outside, even on the street. They had all the tables there, and all the men, they usually go there and play. And then he was coming home and we were playing games like Scopa or Sette Bello.
We had a load of old decks at home, you know, it's the typical kind of drugstore decks, as the Americans would say. But when I was about 17, we went to Costco and I found the brick of bicycle decks that they did. It was a different world in terms of quality. And I think it's the old Cincinnati blue decks. I've still got some of them sealed up.
Around Christmas time, we used to play all together for a whole month. We were all a different group of people and we were playing Scala 40, Machiavelli. And it was really nice because it was a social life with friends and family, and we were having fun. Yeah, I remember this about my first start with playing cards.
Magic and poker really got me into cards. You know, through the poker boom, Chris Moneymaker winning the World Series of Poker, everyone was playing. That was when, you know, I would get the opportunity to do a bit of magic and play some games and actually use the cards more so than when I was a kid, when we mainly played, you know, Patience or Snap or Rummy a few times with the family.
I was always surrounded by art in my life. My dad was an artist. My aunt, she was an architect. And my mom, she used to paint a bit on fabric. So from early age, I used to have this list of things that I would like to do in my life. And one of these was a deck of cards.
We were living in Sicily, we were living in Palermo. We wanted to make a deck of cards, but not a playing card deck. I knew about Kickstarter. I remember just going down this black hole of like, oh wow, like people are doing such cool stuff on here. I got bitten by the bug again, you know, I got the invisible deck out, you know, YouTube had kind of come and changed everything with streaming, so it was all so much easier now. And Penguin Magic was there with Os Perlman, the magician, the awesome teacher of magic as well, with his Born to Perform Magic DVD. Yeah, and I had that and I was hooked. I was starting again, and that whole period 2016 2017 was awesome. It was a great period for magic and playing cards in general, but it was great for us because everything kind of aligned. We started working on a deck based on a Sicilian legend called Filide.
Anthony's ideas of Filide was a classic deck.
We were really into mythology and art, and we were very into the history of Sicily at that time. I was discovering this new country. Alessandra was sharing with me, you know, the huge culture of art that they have there. Filide just really stood out as a tale we could really do something with.
In Sicily there are all of these lands and are farmlands, and you can see from the distance there is just one tree, and around the spring it's blossoming, and the tree is the almond tree.
I think Filide was unique in that we started from a kind of idea of back design. We had this idea of the tree of life, and Alessandra knew about this story, which is is relatively unknown in the big scheme of Roman mythology, but very well known in her particular region of Sicily, thanks to its connection with the almond tree.
Usually in a classic deck of cards, the deck starts with Ace of Spades. But because we wanted to tell a story, we started with the Ace of Hearts, because the Ace of Hearts, it's Filide and Acamante in love.
So I wanted something I could use for magic and that people would use for magic. So the design on the back had to have that kind of rider back feel. We have the two kind of circles and the border and everything, but it had to be our own thing. Ale controls the art, right? So I had to do the other stuff. That meant researching the suppliers. It meant figuring out Kickstarter. It meant dealing with customers. It meant all that side of things. We launched on Kickstarter. And it went well. We were really happy. We built up a nice little following beforehand, and a lot of those people are still with us. We couldn't have asked for any more.
So really it was our first experience of deco cards. The took boxes, they were really nice, and the foil looked amazing. But as every deck of cards that you usually buy, when you open the deck, it's white. So we thought maybe for the next one, we would like to print inside too. It would be really nice.
We knew we could do better. So we started doing some research into what kind of companies would do that kind of foil work on the tuck box.
I remember I sent so many emails with the file of the Green Man, and I was asking if they can do the inside printing and then the level of details that I wanted.
We needed to be able to talk directly with the printer and understand just how far we could push the technology. Alessandra's artwork is very intricate. We didn't want to jeopardize that. We didn't want to compromise on that. Foil, if you print it too close together, it can bleed into the colors can bleed together.
We had a meeting with the different printers, and someone they were good, but they were still asking me to change something.
We wanted someone who could be very clear about what was possible and try and get us the result we wanted, even if it was difficult.
I wanted someone that if there is a problem, it doesn't say, no, we can't do that, but we will find a solution together that could work. We found Boschiero. So we took the car, we drove for 4 hours, and yeah, we met Boschiero.
They claimed that they could do exactly what we wanted for the Green Man, and that they recognized the problems that had happened with Filidae, and they could also resolve those. We were really impressed with what they were doing down there, and when we worked with them on the Green Man, it just brought everything together. For the second project, all the stops were out. We just moved to the woods above Lake Como in the mountains, and you know, that the magic of that nature was really inspiring to us in that period. And we were learning about plants and trees. Everything had a story, everything had some character behind it, and there were just hundreds of these stories to tell.
I was starting to research about more like plants, and I started to design them, sketching them, and trying to get some idea out without, you know, not really a direction. But then, because sometimes the idea comes without asking.
The Green Man for me is the first project where it really captures the soul of Jocu and what we were trying to do. It was also the first project where I was really involved on the creative side.
And we discovered this tree is the elder tree. The people around us, they were telling if you take from the tree, you need to ask the permission. And the story is basically there is a witch inside this tree, and you need to ask the permission before taking something from her. So that was really cool. I designed the first character connected with this tree, and it was the elder witch.
I discovered so much more in that world of mythology and folklore that suddenly I had 3 or 4 decks ready to go in my mind, and from that point on we just had to get them made.
I was a bit struggle about the front of the box. One day I went to Bern in Switzerland, and I saw this wall with all the faces of the Green Man, and now this face is the face of the Green Man. It's different, it's not exactly the same, but it's still inspired by that wall and that place in Bern.
The Green Man went really well. It became one of our most popular projects. It's one of our most beloved characters and themes.
The Green Man, it's really special as our second project because it's the first playing cards box that Boschiero ever made. And
the box came out exactly as we imagined. And from then on, it was all systems go. I always think of Jocu's projects as coming from like a tree, okay? And Filidae and the Green Man, they're like the trunk of this tree. And everything that comes after somehow grows like branches out from these initial projects, and they have to work like this in order for them to make sense in terms of what we do. When it came to our third project, it was really important for me that we didn't just do the same thing again. And hops and barley for me was the perfect new branch of that Jocu tree.
The cool things about hops and barley was the foil. At the time, the foil was just gold or silver. With hops and barley, we printed with white foil, and it was pastel straight on the paper, and the paper had really nice texture.
We were working with Boschiero. The partnership was going really well, and we've been introduced to all these different types of cardstock and foils, and we thought, what if we could somehow create this classic deck with a completely different style and do something really special with the box. We found this paper that was made from recycled beer byproducts, literally recycled hops and barley, and the idea grew from there. We created a classic deck that showed a different side to us, but also really concentrated that really important aspect for me of Jocu, which is that every deck has to be cohesive. Everything has to connect. The theme, the cards, the artwork, and the box. From beginning to end, everything has to link together. And hops and barley is a perfect example of that.
I have a sort of connection with the sea, and I was thinking, we did all the creatures, they are on earth, but there is so much underwater that we don't know.
While we were working on hops and barley, Alessandra was working on her own project, things that were just for her.
I was first inspired by a fish, and then from the fish I was taking the details of the fish and I was making the humans connected with the fish.
When she showed me one day the card that would later become the Queen of Hearts of Onda, I said, look, we have to do this, but it is your project. But honestly, she just ran with it, and Onda was born. The story for Onda, again talking about that tree of our decks, it's right, we have hops and barley and then we come right back to kind of legends and folklore, but Onda is completely invented by us. It's also the first time I think that Boschiero and Newton really got to grips with more complex foiling and embossing. There's a lot that goes into the Onda tuck box that's just really special. We had always ideas, we had so many projects we wanted to do, and Patreon had launched, but we wanted to do something a bit different. The Inner Circle enabled us to create the decks we wanted without having to necessarily worry about how many we would sell, because most of them are either exclusive to the members or the members trusted us to just produce something cool that we wanted to do. This enabled us to produce a classic deck like Essential, which has the botanical theme. It enabled us to produce the Inner Circle Club deck, which wouldn't have made any sense outside of it, but it's one of our most fun and unique decks, I think. Cult was 4 decks, completely invented in terms of storyline by us, but with references to real-world folklore and legends and mythology. I was inspired by some of the locations near to where we live, where they found remnants of old villages, very small villages, which were cults to various gods, usually from Roman times.
For Cut, we wanted something different for the boxes. We wanted to experiment more. The tuck box itself, we like to keep simple because we like the people that play with our decks. But in the same time, we wanted to do something more special. I designed the font, Cult. We choose to don't use too much the foil, and embossing was the core of the deck. And then add a little sleeve, and we used the wax seal.
This was a really fun project, hugely ambitious to create. 4 limited edition gilded decks in unique tuck boxes with these completely invented characters and this beautiful story behind it. I mean, Cult is not finished yet. There's much more to come from that world, but those 4 decks are one of the things I'm most proud of. The success of Cult also led us into Inverno, which is a winter-themed deck, again exploring different characters who could be from mythology related to the cold, related to the winter.
I was drawing humans, I was drawing people, I was drawing animals, but then creators. So for me it was a big challenge too.
Inverno builds on the world of Cult, and it's kind of a sequel which takes place in, without spoiling it, takes place in kind of a dream of the narrator of the original Cult. This takes on the same vibe of the Cult project, but transports us to a frozen world.
The color palette is all connected with ice, it's all the cold colors, with some details of the frost.
As well as some surprises thrown in as well. And it's another project that we would never have been able to do without the success of Cult and the Inner Circle membership.
We are really into the materials. This time with Inverno we choose paper that he had already some embossing that it goes to already to the frozen world. And then we did a new technique of printing again. So we print the foil first, and then after we print on top of the foil. That was another challenge for Boschiero.
We created some of our most unique tuck boxes, and we encased them in a carrot case meant to resemble the kind of an ice block. I'm really happy with how that turned out as well. In 2022, it was finally time to approach Under the Moon.
Under the Moon was a big project, so big. Started to do some sketch of the animals. I think they stayed in my drawer for like probably 3 years or so.
When I was researching for The Green Man, I came across a book called Lunario, which had various stories about the moon. And there was a fascinating one which really resonated with me at the time, and that's the story of the moon and the hare. And it's a story of which a version has been found in almost every culture and every civilization, going right back even to like ancient Africa, the Aztecs, Celts. I mean, everybody has a version of this story, to the point where it seems as if the original tale predates modern humans. I mean, it exists in societies that never met, which could only suggest that this story has been around as long as man has been around, when we were all on one continent. And that fascinated me because it shows the power of folklore and the power of mythology and the power of storytelling. The story involved the moon and the hare, and how the hare is often seen kind of gazing at the moon, or at least in a romantic, artistic sense. That was the initial moment that sparked the idea of Under the Moon. But it would be years before we could really do the project as we envisaged, because it had to be done right. And back in 2019, we weren't ready.
One of my favorite characters is the frog. This frog that he's got like a potion on his hand. He's holding this potion, and it could be the potion, the cure of everything. And I think that was really cool. And then there was the lizard, the salamander, and there were so many animals really cool on that deck.
Most people love animals, and every country has different stories about animals and their relationship with humans. And we kind of anthropomorphized them a little bit, but not so much that it became jarring in the deck. So I think Ale found a perfect balance between kind of cute and still animal, but a few little elements that relate it to the mythology behind them.
I would like to do something on the numbers too. So there is this scaling through the deck, and then there are footprints of animals. So each suit has a different footprint that it goes through the numbers.
We decided to cold foil every deck, which was not an easy decision, and it was not a cheap one, but it made sense and it looked great. And Under the Moon became by far our most successful project so far.
I had a lot of fun by designing the triptych took boxes. I decided to draw the animals in a sort of woodland scene and let the animal do something. And I think it came out really, really beautiful. The great things about Jocu, it's that we are not just us. We give space to other artists.
The Wheel of the Year with Evgenia Jade started because I saw her style and she was already working in playing cards, and I knew we had to have her for the Wheel of the Year series. And that was a huge project which is still ongoing, but it did kickstart our first collaboration, and it was a successful one. I've always been open for collaboration with the right artist, someone who speaks to us and brings something different that we can't necessarily do on our own.
Silvia was great. She was really fast on drawings, all the characters.
Sylvia is a well-known street artist around Milan, and in fact I've seen her work all over the city now. Octafly, Rise and Shine and Dusk Till Dawn are right on the end of one of those branches that just comes off, and it still has the soul of Jocu. You know, we're promoting female artists. We've got a bit of a fun side that we wanted to let out. Most of all, the Octafly project enabled us to experiment with some new printing techniques as well.
We printed the took boxes with the serigraphy, and then we printed on top in offset.
We wanted to experiment with something different, and I love how those decks have come out.
It's really cool because we wanted to be like a varnish, a paint effect, and this is exactly what it came out.
The Green Man is just the quintessential Jocu project. The Return of the Green Man puts everything we love about the mythology behind Jocu, everything we love about the art, but finally with the funds to be able to create the perfect 4-color cold foil gilded series. Everything we've learned over the years all together.
What I can see in Yoko's future is definitely experimenting, having fun.
For me, we will keep doing what we're doing as long as we love the themes behind the decks, and as long as we can keep producing them exactly as we want them. That's the most important thing for us. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right.
We don't want to make decks because they are popular. We want to make decks that speaks to people and to us.
These past few years have been, for me, just fascinating. The whole behind the scenes side. Working with Boschiero, working with different papers, different foils, learning about printing. These things, for me at least, have been the most exciting part. But the creative side, creating these worlds, creating these stories, and having Alessandra translate them into something that people love, that's what excites me, and that's what I want to keep doing in the future.